this might be too much information for your people. Then I felt it squirt, and then the pain was gone.
Lisa, how did you find carnivore?
Oh, thank you, Dave. The question is a little bit like the old-fashioned once upon a time. It's like story time at Dave's. I appreciate the question and the opportunity. I found carnivore really through finding Dr. Ken Berry, and obviously that was where the algorithm for YouTube actually was my friend. And yes, so started watching his videos. I appreciated the fact that he is a family physician, and that for many years he'd done what he'd been trained to do, and then he had the humility to acknowledge that maybe he wasn't giving the right information. And I have a lot of respect for anyone who can do that. And what brought me finally to start sorting things out, by the time I'd found Dr. Ken Berry and subsequently other ones around the carnivore lifestyle, I had pins and needles in both of my, and numbness in my fingers. And I suspected that I had some peripheral neuropathy. Because of the high blood sugars, I suspected I had insulin resistance. I'm medically trained, but I'm not working in that field anymore. But I had enough medical knowledge to suspect what might be going on there. And I didn't go to the family physician. That was my personal choice. I just thought, I need to actually address the way I was eating, and I knew that I could have cleaned that up. I had skin tags in my armpits. I was getting bouts of thrush. I'd gained a lot of weight, and I had Hashimoto's thyroiditis in the past, in the early 2000s. I had gut issues, so I was noticing that every time I ate, I would get bloating, I would get pain. I was eating a mixture of, I don't know, meat and vegetables and fruits and lots of carbohydrates, and mood was a bit low. I was feeling anxious. I had sinus issues. I had joint pain. So none of those are life-threatening in their own. But it was all starting to accumulate. And I thought, I need to do something about this. I'll give you a little bit of backstory, sort of leading up to that, if it's helpful. So I gave up drinking alcohol in 2010. I had become aware that I had a real dependence on alcohol, that I was using it every day as a coping strategy, and it was starting to be injurious to my health, I would say. And I knew that I had to make the decision. It was a choice. Do I do something about this? So I gave up alcohol. But what happened, and I've heard from others, is that giving up alcohol, many cross addict into lots of carbohydrates, lots of sugars, because alcohol has a lot of sugar in it. And that certainly was my story. Like I went straight into, lots of the biscuits and the chocolates and all of that. I kind of thought, well, that's not going to kill me as fast as alcohol. So I was kind of settling with that for the moment while I settled into a way of living without alcohol. And yeah, that was just the way I coped with that. I was using sugars for energy. I was using carbohydrates to soothe me. I had a national traveling role, so I was going around the country delivering workshops and a lot of conference food and, eating in motels and things. So I was tired and I just wanted to be at home, and I was in some random motel somewhere. It was just that sort of lifestyle. So I was using food as my comforter. I would try cutting down on carbohydrates and sugar over the years since giving up alcohol, and it always crept back in. And I tried using exercise to kind of counter that. But I think I'm inherently a bit lazy, actually. I'd rather not have to exercise too hard to try and maintain my weight. I mean, I'm 62 years old now, and I kind of thought I can't get away with doing what I'm doing to my body and expect it to run well. Um, I tried keto about 4 years ago, so I found Dr. Berg, and again, he's a chiropractor training, but I really liked the way he seemed to look into research, and the way he packaged information for me was nice and simple. Like, it needed to be at a good basic level for me to grasp all of these principles. I'd forgotten a lot of my medical training, so it was actually really good. People are taking time to package this information. So I was on keto for about a year, and I moved from clean keto to dirty keto. The keto treats started to be way more fun than being on keto. And before long, I'd sort of relapsed right back to full-on sugar addiction and carbohydrate addiction. So I hadn't made the connection between me eating vegetables and how my gut was behaving. I knew that after every meal, and at that stage I was eating 3 meals a day, I would get bloating, I would get a sore stomach. I didn't make any association with it being, I didn't know, but I suspected actually I knew particularly cauliflower and broccoli they were consistently uncomfortable for me. But I didn't do much more with that information, which doesn't sound that smart really, but that was the truth. And I mean, another part of my little story was I I was doing body sculpting for a while. So, I was working out at the gym, and the sports nutritionist that I was seeing at the time said, you you need to eat 5 times a day to try and fine your body down. And so I did that, and I still couldn't get the results that I wanted. So now I understand why, of course, like eating 5 times a day, I'm getting insulin spikes every time I eat. So, and that sort of inflammation, stress on the body, I didn't know about any of that, but I was trusting the sports nutritionist. And, that's no disrespect to her. It's just what they were delivering, as thinking they were doing the right thing. As I say, so I started initially a year ago. So no, not quite a year ago. November last year, I was actually researching keto again, and then Ken Berry popped up, and I went, this is interesting. I liked he's from the Midwest, isn't he? I'm from Auckland, New Zealand, but I liked his down to earth approach, like just very simple. I watched a lot of his videos. What really worked for me actually was hearing people's testimonies, where people would say, I've tried this for 90 days and this is what the results I got. Wow, and there's something I feel that's really powerful about someone's personal testimony, which is why I want to acknowledge you and you creating this platform where, story time at Dave's, where you get everyday folk on to tell their story. And actually, that gives me hope. So thank you so much. And everyone in this community, I really just want to say a big shout out and thank you, because it is through that it had me learn that I could maybe do this too. So my thoughts initially of carnivore, when I was hearing Dr. Berry, he was the one I listened to a lot in the beginning, was like, oh, can it be this simple? And then it started to challenge my own programming, which was, I need variety, I need fruits, I need vegetables, I need breads, I need roughage, I need fiber. And that was all my programming, which I acquired over the time. And I found that quite challenging. But when Dr. Berry spoke about, well, doing the 90-day elimination diet on the beef, butter, bacon, and eggs, and I happen to love all of that. And I thought, well, gosh, if it's going to be that tough, I'm up for it. Can I do 90 days? I don't know. But I like the simplicity of, and he was talking about it being giving the gut a chance to heal, like just lowering the whole set point for inflammation, for just what was going on in the gut, to get the cortisol levels down, like all of that. And that made a lot of sense to me. So I decided to go for the 90-day elimination diet. And my thoughts were at the time was, I don't have to agree to doing 90 days. I can just do it a day at a time. Like, can I do a day eating some bacon and eggs and some steak? And it's like, turns out I can. And I loved it. And so I had to overcome my own programming of, I'm going to be nutrient deficient. I'm going to, these essential elements and minerals, my body's going to go into a deficit. I might get scurvy and get all bendy and, like all this programming. And I just thought, look, what's the worst that can happen? If it doesn't work for me, I can always go back to my old way of eating. Like, it's my choice. No one's pushing food into my face anyway. And there was something empowering about me really choosing what I wanted to do. I was eating out of habit 3 times a day because that's what you do. But the interesting thing in all of this was learning to listen to what my body, when it was hungry. So that was a revelation, like to actually start to get those feelings in my body of going, oh, that equals hunger. And then eating till I'm full, and then not eating again till I'm hungry again. And that whole philosophy of, how did our ancestors eat? Well, they'd have a fire, they'd kill something, they'd eat till they were stuffed, and then they would do fasting again until they managed to kill something again. And that made a lot of sense to me. So I embarked on the 90-day diet. In the 90, it's not even a diet. It was just a 90-day way of eating, and that was 10 months ago. And there's a few. I'm really, really grateful for people's testimonies. I know I've said that, but there's something about when you're going through those early stages of carnivore, certainly in my experience, the early days were rough, and getting that whole sugar, getting off that was rough. And if it hadn't been for people saying, it'll get better, it'll be all right, I might have given up. I knew I deserved to feel better than I was. So I've given up sugar before. I've given up alcohol, so I knew to trust. I just need to get through the next amount of time, just need to get through today. Nothing is worth at that stage to revert back to how bad I was feeling when I'd had enough of feeling sick and tired, like just really unwell. So day 4 was rough, particularly. And it was a Dr. Berg video who talked about gallbladder pain, gallbladder sludge. And early on in my carnivore journey, I got extreme gallbladder pain. Now, I'm not diagnosing anyone here or giving medical advice, but I had extreme pain which I knew was coming from where the gallbladder is. And I remember hearing a video where Dr. Berg's talking about when we're changing over our diets, we can get gallbladder sludge, which can block up the gallbladder. So obviously the bile being made in the liver, and it goes to the gallbladder. But so I got this pain, and I thought, I'm going to see if I can move the sludge. Now, I'm just that sort of weird person, really. So I got the kind of hook and put it in and pressed on my gallbladder and leant forwards and just breathed. This might be too much information for your people. Then I felt it squirt, and then the pain was gone. And I've had no gallbladder pain since. So that was me, heal thyself. I'd ask anyone to make their own decisions whether they choose to do that. Did the 90 days. I lost quite a lot of weight in those 90 days. But I had weight to lose. So I'm only 5'2", and at the time of starting the carnivore way of life, I was 146 pounds. So it doesn't take much extra weight for me to make it look like I'm carrying a lot. So in my carnivore journey, I've lost over 23 pounds, 10.6 kilograms. And it hasn't made me taller. So, but I'm carrying it better. And I was doing it more to feel good. I knew I did need to lose some weight, but it was more around the general malaise, the low mood, the foggy head that I didn't even know I had. All of that stuff gradually started to clear. And in fact, my thinking, even within weeks of being on carnivore, I started to think more clearly, and my anxiety levels just dropped down. I was like, wow, I think this is called serenity. And I was going, my body just was loving meat. It was just loving it. And if I could imagine what my body was saying to me, it was like, thank you. And in fact, in the early stages, I ate a lot. It's like my body was starving for nutrients. Like I I did stick with the beef, butter, bacon, and eggs, and particularly steak, ribeye. I've got an expensive habit now, but I don't care because I don't spend much much money on any other food. So yeah, so I think my body was doing some catch up time, getting those nutrients in. And at the end of 90 days, I thought I will start to introduce one food at a time to see what my body does with it, because I was learning about this body that I'd taken for granted for so long. I just would put poor quality fuel in there and expect it to run really well. So I did what Dr. Berry suggests if people want to, and it was just introduce one food and notice how your body reacts. And it turns out I'm highly intolerant of all vegetables. So anything with oxalates, it's not hard to keep away from them because my body absolutely doesn't like them. I can tolerate like things like carrots, like broccoli and spinach and all of that stuff that I thought I was doing the right thing trying to eat. Turns out my body doesn't want it. I can eat avocado and I can eat tomatoes and I can eat blueberries, but honestly, I didn't notice any nutritional or other benefits in eating them. I know I can, but at the moment I'm carrying on with my expensive steak habit and eggs and bacon and butter. Like it works for me. And that's okay, because we all do our own personal journeys, don't we? Like that's what I'm finding. It turns out I don't tolerate cheese. Now that was actually a really sad day. That really was a sad day because I love cheese. But it turns out it gives me instant sinus problems. So again, it's not worth it. I can do it, but I don't. Um, the other things that have happened. So I decided I don't need to introduce any other foods. I'm happy staying on carnivore, and it's a lifestyle. It's not a diet. I I've lost over 23 pounds in weight. I've the skin tags have gone from my armpits. My skin is cleared up. My mood, I just feel calmer. I have more patience and tolerance for the most part for the wider world. And my thinking is clearer. Life is just a lot simpler because I just wait till I'm hungry. I eat, I clean up the kitchen, and then I just don't think about it. Like I'm not obsessing of what meal, what cookbook am I going to get? There's all of that
Mm,
stuff.
yeah. How's the neuropathy and the joint pain and things like that?
Yeah, so all neuropathy went certainly in those 90 days. So that's I've got full feeling and function there is fine. And I have no joint pain now. I've started yoga and I haven't felt motivated to do any exercise. I think partly too because I was carrying the extra weight, my range of movement for my joints. I was blocked because of extra weight. I just couldn't bend my knees the right way. And so, what the yoga is doing is tightening up the loose skin because I had some, it's been a gradual loss of weight. So, it's in 10 months to lose that much weight. It's not fast, but it's been sustainable. And I did have loose skin. And I thought, no, I'm just going to let my body. Again, I was reading about autophagy and how our bodies can reabsorb over time. Whilst I may not be losing inches, my body is using the extra skin as fuel. Like it takes time, you know. So that skin is tightening up through my arms and biceps and things. And so that's been also an added benefit on the journey. I decided I would go to the doctor. Now I don't go to the doctor, but I thought I'm going to go and get some blood work done because I'm just curious now. And I listened to Dr. Berry talk about Common Sense Labs. So he's put a book together of called Common Sense Labs, which is a way to help understand about what blood tests, etc., to ask for from the doctor, and how results for people on the carnivore diet can appear like they're bad, but they're not. So I did do a little bit of research before I went to my doctor. I didn't tell him the eating plan that I'm on. I just thought he's not going to get it. So all I said to him was, I'm on a whole foods, nutritionally dense, zero sugar, very low carb way of eating. And he said, oh, good on you. And I just thought, well, we'll just leave it at that. And I had a list of the blood tests that I wanted. And I got the results back. And I had said to him that if my HbA1c, so that's measuring the blood sugars, if that comes back high, and what I've learned is that the red blood cells can live longer when we're on carnivore. So instead of the average of 120 days for our blood cells, they actually can live longer, which gives them a longer time to glycate. So it can appear giving a false result. So I'd said to my GP, if it comes back high, I want a glycating albumin test. So he obviously went and did a little bit of research. I think he's a little bit scared of me, actually. But he came back to me and said, I can't order that test for you. You will have to, because my HbA1c did come back a little bit high, just on the early stage of high. And he said, you will have to pay for that glycating albumin test yourself. And it was like, I don't think we need to bother with that. I because of my previous Hashimoto's disease, I asked for a full thyroid panel. My thyroid is a little bit high, and I nursed my dad back in May. He passed in May. So I'm also putting that down to, lack of sleep and stress. I asked for a free T4 and a free T3, so thyroid 4 and thyroid 3 tests as well. And the reason being is I've got good levels of T4, but that's the inactive version of the thyroid hormone. And having the T3 is the active one that our bodies can use. And mine's a little bit low. So what I'm doing now is I'm increasing eggs because they're a good source of selenium, amongst other things. So I'm just having a go at putting a little bit more in to support my thyroid, and then I'm due to go back and have more bloods done in 3 months. The All the doctor was interested in terms of cholesterol was my total cholesterol and my LDL, and it's like, actually I don't care. Like, I'm not that worried about those. The two that I am interested in is the triglycerides and the HDL, and I need to get my triglycerides up a little bit. So I'm having that baseline was really helpful, but I think also doing my own research and using my own discernment has been, and with communities like this as well, so I can learn. That's helped give me the confidence to make choices for myself, which I've done. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like this is a lot of, you know, the power coming back to the people in terms of, like, our ancestors didn't do any of this. Well, there wasn't the internet, but
Right.
like, they just ate, right?
Yeah, it really is taking back your power, right? It's because all our lives we've outsourced our power to a doctor who actually doesn't care about what's going on. It's just like, how fast can I get this patient through my office, you know?
Yeah,
Nothing against the doctor. I mean, that's
yeah,
just what the pressure they're under.
that's right.
Um, but yeah, it's taking back our power, and we feel better for it, right?
Mm, that's right. And when I started to hear, I wasn't that sort of into research. Like, I tend to go a bit glazed eyed with research papers. So thank goodness for people who can read these papers and translate them. But when I heard that, when they went to the pyramids, the grains and 5 servings of this, and when I heard that that was actually funded by the sugar industry, that's when my ears started to prick up, and I thought, I think I need to look into this a little bit more. And I don't believe in getting angry about this. Like, I'm just quietly getting on and doing my thing. I find that anyone who gets curious about what I've done, I'm totally up for sharing them what I'm doing. But I don't evangelize or try and convince anybody, because when I've tried to do that in the past, because I really wanted to shout this from the rooftops. I really did. But what happens if people are too far away from where I am, or where the community is people will start to argue for their limitations. You know, and so that's okay. Like, we all need to do our own journey on this. So I just tend to get on and do my thing. I don't shout about it. I manage my eating around social situations. People still they're going, oh, but you must be on some probiotics and prebiotics, and I'm like, no. I do take some essential minerals and elements still, because I with the thyroid and things, I'm still wanting to get that back to a more optimal level. So the salts and the iodine and chloride and copper and so I am taking a blend as a daily thing for that, and I'm just doing my thing. I sort of think Homo sapiens are the only ones that probably overcomplicate things and overthink things, and the fact that we're even needing to create communities to support each other on this is just a sign of the times. And thank goodness we do have that support. But um, animals don't question other animals as to how they're eating. They just eat. You know, everyone
Right.
does their own thing.
Yeah, very good point. Yeah, I mean, that's I've said this before, but it this is how the biggest signal we've got that that we have lost our way, because we are the only species that is constantly questioning diet and trying to micromanage things. And we know from every area of life, micromanagement just doesn't work. But we're constantly trying to micromanage our diet, and no other animal is out there going, I had Brussels sprouts yesterday. It's they just eat what they're meant to eat.
Yeah, that's it. Life is way more simple than certainly what I was making it. And there's all I need to do this is just a day at a time. I use the same philosophy with how I eat today as when I gave up alcohol. I just need to do it a day at a time. I need to have compassion and grace for myself and others. I'm as healthy as I choose to be. That's it.
Nice. So, how are you eating day to day? Like, what are you doing 2 meals a day or?
Mostly 2 meals a day. And that's in a 6-hour window. So I sometimes 1 meal a day, but yeah, mostly 2 meals a day. And my expensive habit of ribeye steak, and I'm having more eggs and bacon as well. But that works for me. I found that chicken just doesn't fill me up. Like it's like eating paper for me. I tend to stick to the steak. Lamb is also good. I Yeah, basically that. And I'm getting really good at cooking steak, and it's coming into our summer here in New Zealand, so I'm looking forward to that.
Nice. Yeah, chicken is the paper of meat. I yeah, I was thinking a similar thing. For me, chicken is the water of meat, it's like uh, I've always kinda had this feeling about chicken as kind of tasteless in relation to other meats, but yeah. Um, so have you had anyone around you kind of say, "Well, how come you don't eat whenever we're around?" Or, "How come you're only eating a ribeye every day?"
Yes, yes, I've had people. There's this culture of you have a biscuit. If you go and meet a group of friends, and they're just automatically eating the sweet stuff with, oh, I'm not really hungry. Oh, but they're just so good. And then they go back, and they think I don't know really what they think. I think they're trying to tempt me. That's been really interesting, actually. Is, oh, how can you not eat that? And it's like, I'm not hungry. So it's switched from having food as a pleasure and joy to I just eat for nutrition. And when I've said to them, so going to restaurants is a little bit tricky. And I did see, because I've got all seed oils, I cleared out the whole pantry, my whole house of seed oils, hearing about what they're like. And so going to restaurants, and I don't do that a lot, but it's a little bit tricky. But I did see online that people have designed cards that you can download to take to restaurants, and you can give it and say, take this to the chef and tell them, I cannot have any of these oils. This is what I can have. This is what I can't. And I thought, oh, that's actually quite good. So I suspect restaurants would be nervous if they're thinking someone's going to have anaphylaxis if they give the wrong thing. So I thought that's actually probably quite a useful tool. Yeah, I don't get invited out to restaurants very much, and that's okay. I'm a little bit of a homebody. I'm okay with that. And I have a couple of grown young men, my sons, and they love it that I've got steak in the house. Actually,
Are they still eating the veggies? Like, are they sometimes like, "Mum, what's going on with this thing?"
yeah, they are. But then, as a mother, I'm not going to convince them too much at this age because they know everything. So it's okay with me. They'll come around maybe.
So no one's shown interest around you, like, "Oh, well, you've lost a lot of weight. Like, what are you doing?
Well,
Maybe I'll try that."
I when they heard I was doing this interview, they said, "Oh, could you send us the link?" So because I've not told a lot of them my full story, I guess, and not because I'm embarrassed about it, I just haven't really done it. So I'll send them the link, and they can decide whatever they do about it. I know some almost apologize to me as soon as they see me, as they're about to put a biscuit into their mouth. They're almost saying, "I know I shouldn't be eating this." It's like I'm making them feel guilty or something, and it's like that's not. It's nothing I've said. They just look at me and go, "Oh, she doesn't eat sugar," so that's what they're equating it to, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Um,
I think, people on a regular diet, one of the things that they can't quite get their head around is that at some point when you've been doing carnivore, you have no feeling for that sugar stuff anymore, right? Because your whole perspective changes on food, right? So, I mean, you're not looking at that anymore like, "Oh, I'd love to have one of those Tim Tams. I'd love to have one of those," you know? It's just like, yeah, whatever. I'm engaged in the conversation that's happening at the moment. You're not thinking about the food at all, but people on a regular diet can't understand that, right?
That's right, and it's making those. It's a habit, like it's that mindless put. And I've done it myself. I'm not judging it. It's like just mindlessly putting stuff in. And of course, I got the sort of personality that once I put some in there, I want more. Like one is never enough. So that's I know that happens if I put sugar in. I know what's going to happen, and then I will suffer the consequences for it. And I've just made the decision, and I've had enough evidence to show me that it's not worth the aftermath of that short term sugar hit and then suffering afterwards. I do. My work involves helping people with cravings and dealing with issues around anxiety, and so I have enough knowledge in all of this now, and on my own healing journey is now why I'm working in the field. But learning about what happens with that as our dopamine starts to rise, there's the ancient part of the brain that goes into searching mode. So what it's doing is it's searching. So let's say it might be fear, it might be needing some food, it might be around reproduction. So what it does is the dopamine's rising. Whatever we put into our body, the behavior or the food, the substance, we learn to associate a rise in dopamine, which is our reward system, with whatever we're doing at the time. So that's how addictions and things can kick off, like sugar addiction, carb addiction, and alcohol, whatever. It's because our dopamine's already starting to rise. We then do the substance or the behavior, and we get the rewards. So it's like, well, next time our body's saying to us, do it again. And so the only way to counter that is at the time when the dopamine is rising, and Kelly Hogan talks about this really well. I really appreciate what she's done in explaining this. Is associated different behavior at the time when the dopamine's rising instead of the behavior or the substance. Do something else that feels even better than that, like a bigger, better offer. Do that. And then it hacks your dopamine system to go, oh, well, do that new behavior or that new food. And then you get the reward of that. So it starts to diminish the other one. So you can't just take away something, because the signals for the searching will ramp up even louder. And that's been my experience. If I've just given up sugar, it just goes crazy. It's just, yeah.
Yeah. So on that point, if one of your after you've shared this link around, say one of your friends comes to you and says, "Okay, I'm down. I want to try this." What advice would you give them so that they can have success?
Mm, good question. I would, one of the things first is to remember the why, like get a snapshot of where this, what has finally brought the person to go, actually, I want to do something about this, because getting that is a really powerful motivator to, to counter all the pressures that might be coming from the outside, to do this wacky way of eating, which is not really that wacky, but there's a bit of pressure out there to not be doing this. And I liked the sound of the 90-day challenge, and I like the word challenge because I'm stubborn, so it's like, yeah. So just I would suggest that is a good place to start, and just be in the day. Get get the naughty foods, for want of a word, out of the house, the temptations. Tell them that they're going to feel rough, particularly if they are not coming from keto. If they're coming from a standard diet, to go slowly. So maybe they need to transition, if they're full on into lots of processed foods and lots of sugars, I would say almost try and get your sugars down, try and get your carbs down. Don't go 0-0. It's that's hard on the body, because I think if people go through too much too early, they'll go, I feel worse, so therefore this isn't working, and they give up. So I would be offering support to them along the way as well, to say, look, I'll be your buddy as you walk alongside this. We can share a state together, who knows. And to get them to watch, channels like yours, to give it time, and to note how they're feeling. So any changes, we can forget how bad we felt. I know that was the case for me. Unless I'd taken a snapshot of how bad I was feeling, I would have thought, oh, I don't know if this is doing much. I don't know, it's worth it. But I knew enough that I really was feeling dreadful. And I don't want to be feeling dreadful for the rest of my life. I've got a lot of living to do. I've got way more energy. And, it. So, yeah, that would be the short thing of what I would suggest. And that they don't have to do it alone. I think that's a really important part, actually, is there are people around who can, with offering that hand of friendship. If you're having a tough day, just reach out.
Yeah, it's good to be able to reach out. I mean, I think for myself, had it not been for so many people talking about this on YouTube, I don't think I would have been able to last as long as I did at the start, you know? It's really helped.
Yes.
Yeah. So, Lisa, how can people get in touch with you? Do you have a website or any
Yes.
social media?
Yes, I do have a website. It's EFT Serenity .co.nz or NZ. I'm bilingual. And people can reach out to me. I've got a contact form on there. I'd be happy to chat, or if people want to book sessions, if they're having issues with addiction and cravings, or just having a bit of a rough time, totally happy to be, walking alongside anyone.
Awesome. So I'll include your website in the show notes. Lisa, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your story. I really appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you, Dave, and thank you for all that you do. And I can imagine a group of us round a big campfire, chewing on our meat bones and going, how did you find carnivore?